And lastly, to wrap up the episode, let's talk about Anora. This is a full spoiler review because...
no excuses. You should have seen it by now.
If you haven't seen Anora, pause the podcast, watch it, and then come back immediately after watching it.
Exactly.
So you can join in right now. Okay, cool. Okay, so again, this one was heard a lot of really good buzz. I heard that it was, and I think in the trailer it describes itself as Pretty Woman meets Uncut Gems.
That's the perfect way of describing it.
Yeah,
it really is.
And the thing is, so I heard good things about it. Did not see any reviews. Did not watch anything. Or I wanted to go in just knowing the bare minimum of like the synopsis. And I did watch the trailer, but it had been a while since I had seen it before watching the movie. And after like most movies, I watch a film. I let myself digest it for a bit, and then I go to my favorite reviewers and just see what see what they think as well. And the same thing had popped up, and I hadn't seen this, or at least I didn't remember. So maybe it was subconscious or it was subliminal. But in my head, I was thinking, it's Pretty Woman, but then at the end of it, the second and third act feels like Uncut Gems because you kind of feel that, not bad anxiety, but just like that excitement, that rush of things are in motion.
The adrenaline.
The adrenaline. One of my favorite reviewers said that. He goes, Pretty Woman and Uncut Gems. And I was like, oh my God, that's like the perfect description for it. And again, without the anxiety, but yeah, just that rush of what unfolds. But basically, again, so for those who should have seen it by now, Anora, a young escort and stripper from Brooklyn, gets her chance at a Cinderella story when she meets and impulsively marries the son of a Russian oligarch. This movie starts out, first, it stars Mikey Madison, nominated for Best Actress in a leading role. She's perfect.
Fantastic.
In this film. Did not know I knew that she was in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Yeah.
As the
movie that spawned 1 million careers.
Yeah.
I mean, it's insane the amount of like minor characters that were in that
Margaret
movie.
Qualley's also in there too.
Sydney Sweeney, Austin Butler, Maya Hawke.
She wasn't small, but Dakota Fanning's also in there too.
Yeah.
I didn't recognize her.
No, it's crazy to think how many like big name people played like minor roles in that movie.
Yeah. So so Mikey Madison, and again, many of these actors are Russian, and so I'm butchering their names unless you know them.
Yura Burasov is the guy who's nominated for Best Supporting Actor.
Yeah, he plays Igor, one of the henchmen, one of the quote
the goons.
Yeah, I love those guys. Mark Idelshaven, he plays Ivan.
Oh yeah. That's a hard one. I won't even bother.
Yeah, that one's a tough one. Surprisingly favorite character, Toros, played by Karen Karagulian.
Yeah, that
Toros
sounds right.
is a fantastic character.
Yeah.
And then you have the other henchman, Vach Tov Mason, as Garnick. And I didn't realize I was going to be enjoying all of these characters.
Oh my God. For the SAG Awards, like Best Ensemble wrapped up. They are hilarious together. I mean, like, it almost like, I love that people say it, like, it turns into like a slapstick comedy halfway through. And it's almost like, I was going to say it's like Pretty Woman, Uncut Gems, and also just like the Three Stooges, honestly.
Like
just like exactly. Just like the hijinks that they're when they first go to the house, and this is spoilers, when they first go to the house and they have Mikey Madison's character Annie Anora, when they have her tied up on the couch, and Garnick is bleeding out of his nose, and Toros is screaming on the phone.
What's
like it's
going
just
on?
And then I love my favorite like subtle scene in this whole movie is when Toros leaves the church in the middle of the baptism, and all the people in the crowd are like, oh my God, like groaning at him. It was so funny.
Oh, so good. So just a recap of the film. Basically, we're introduced to Nora. She's at this high-end strip club in Brooklyn. That's where she meets the 21-year-old Vanya, the son of Vanya, the son of an extremely wealthy Russian, parents, oligarch of sorts. She impresses him because she knows a little bit of Russian because her grandma only spoke Russian.
No.
And that's how they build this initial connection in the strip club. Things start out transactionally, and so he gets a dance, they drink, he is infatuated by her, and then he tells her like, hey, I'll give you like $1,000 or whatever amount if you want to meet me at my house and basically act as an escort. And after a night spending a night together and having fun, And then, meeting up again through a New Year's Eve party. He offers her $15,000, I believe $15,000 to be his girlfriend for like a week or two or something like that. They begin seemingly growing feelings for each other. And then they decide on a whim, after hanging out with his friends and everybody in this group, to go to Vegas.
Oh, yeah.
Go to Vegas, get married.
And you know what they say about what happens in Vegas?
Don't tell your Russian parents.
Do not tell your oligarch parents.
No. We'll get to more into the plot, but really quick, the Vegas scenes were fun because after their marriage, they got married at the Little White Chapel. They go out to the Strip, and it's funny because you could tell I think they did like a run and gun kind of a shooting, because you could see people in the background, like in the distance, kind of like watching the Mikey Madison and Vanya kind of like spinning, saying, "We just got married," and like they're under the lights and they're celebrating. But you can see in the background just people kind of watching, like they're filming a movie over there.
Yeah,
no, and that's one thing I noticed.
No, and that's the cool thing about Sean Baker's style, is he is very into that guerrilla stuff. I mean, talking about his first movie, Tangerine. I mean, it was just shot on the streets of L.A. with non-actors on an iPhone.
Yeah,
and it turned into a very celebrated feature film. I mean, he has that unique way of being able to deliver the performances and writing and directing, and just out of people that might not even be actors, or just in the most plain situations.
Yeah, and then things ramp up as after they get married, they get back to this big mansion, and that's when word starts to spread because of Vanya's friends at the New Year's party. They say, "Oh, that's the escort." So word gets around back to Russia, where Vanya's parents are. Parents reach out to Vanya's caretakers, who are Toros and the two, henchmen, Garnick and Igor,
the goons,
and the thing I love about this is that they didn't go with the cliche of like, these are mob boss goons where they'll break your knuckles and they're mean and they're evil. These are just guys who work for this rich family, and then they're like, "Oh, we have to take you back to Russia because your parents," and then Vanya just decides to book it, make a run for it, leaves behind Anora, and then that's when they're trying to keep Anora in the house. They end up in this tussle, but the whole time they're trying to stay professional because Garnick is like yelling at Igor, like, "Why are you tying her up? Like, untie her!" And he's like, "Be careful, be careful, she's feisty or whatever. She's gonna hurt you." And then in the scene where, again, literally they're fighting in the room, mainly Anora's fighting, and the two guys are just taking it, trying to be professional, like, "We don't want to do this, we don't want to hurt you." And then the funniest thing was when Garnick was untying Anora's legs with the telephone wire, she like just double foot kicks him in the face. He falls back into a glass table, and then like he has a concussion that continues to like progress, like the symptoms of a concussion throughout the entire movie. It's so hilarious. And so I love that they weren't like evil. They're just like, we work for these rich people, and we're just trying to make this.
They just want to keep that connection alive. They don't really care what they have to do, and it's and Igor just like, I mean, we talked about it earlier, but he's kind of just like there taking it all in, being like, "Well, this is crazy, right?" You almost expect him to look at the camera and be like, "Can you believe this?"
Yeah. And so eventually, Toros, as we mentioned, he was at this baptism of sorts. He gets word from the parents, like, that he got married. Like, "Oh crap! Like this looks bad on me because I'm supposed to be making sure Vanya doesn't get into trouble." Now he got married to an escort, and so he's rushing over there while they're fighting with Anora on the phone. He's just like hearing commotion. He's like, "Don't hurt her! What's going on? Somebody tell me what's going on!" He shows up, and then as like she's tied up, he's like, "What the hell's going on?" They're like, "Be careful, boss.
Yeah,
she's a tough one." That leads to them eventually kind of taking Anora hostage and trying to find Vanya, who's could be anywhere on the street.
Yeah.
So their little adventure, the four of them going to like a diner, trying to find, literally showing random people a picture of like, "Do you know this kid? He's sick. We got to take him back to his parents." Yada yada.
Yeah, and one of the reasons why I love it a lot is because they're the Toros and Garnick. They're both Armenian.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of my friends from home are Armenian, and just like seeing the mannerisms of like Toros, I was just like, that just reminds me of all their dads. It's so funny. And like he goes up to the kids at the bar, and he's like, "You kids these days, you have no respect." It's just such a classic, like the boomer father, and it's so good.
I love the scene. Yeah, sorry.
No, I was just saying, I almost would love to see just like an extended version of just the four of them just like solving mysteries together. Just
I
like
really would.
they're just so goofy and like and I like how you brought up the point of how they're not like these like hard grizzled guys that are gonna like beat the victim into submission and they're gonna like, oh, I'm gonna break your kneecaps. They're just a bunch of guys just trying to get a check. You know, like they're goofing around, they're gooning around. They're just crazy guys.
I love the scene where they're driving to one of the destinations to try to find Vanya, and all of a sudden Garnick just like throws up, again, a symptom from a concussion that he got from Annie, and then you just hear him like, oh my God, I have to clean this. Like my wife is gonna kill me. She's gonna smell this. Like it still smells. Like I know. Like and like this the complaining of like my wife's gonna kill me because this is her car, and now it's getting towed, and now I've ripped it apart. And the scene where like they leave the car like at the pier area. They said, oh, let's just walk to like this other location, this restaurant.
Take 5 minutes.
It'll take 5 minutes, and they just like that was a lot more than 5 minutes, and just like little jokes like that keep your attention, that keep the movie moving. The pacing is fantastic in this film.
And not to jump ahead to mention more of poor Garnick, when they go to the courthouse and they're like make sure the car doesn't get ticketed. If the cops show up, move it. And they come back and you just, as the camera's going by, you just see the little orange thing on the windshield and Garnick just in the front seat like
just passed out.
And Toros is just like, oh my God, I told you to do one thing. And he's like, please let me go to the hospital.
I need the hospital. Also, the court scene also where they're trying to get the marriage annulled. They find Vanya at the strip club. Like again, he's like hammered out of his mind. Anora's like, "Why are you like stand up for yourself?" And this is when she's starting to realize like this guy doesn't care about me. He left me with these theoretical thugs that had no idea what they're gonna do to me. And then they find him back at the strip club where he met Annie, and he's drunk out of his mind. They go to the court, try to get this thing annulled, and the judge is like, one, this isn't Vegas. You have to go to Vegas to get annulled. And two, like, this guy's drunk. Get the hell out of here.
And I love Toros just interrupting the judge constantly. It's just like, you in the camel jacket, shut up. You're not supposed to be talking right now. And she cannot say that. And it's like, no, sit down.
Like, the whole thing is just like, again, like you said, like Three Stooges meets like a kind of a road trip, a buddy road trip of sorts. And they keep hitting speed bumps and roadblocks, and it just gets funnier and funnier. But the thing is this isn't a flat out, straight out comedy.
No,
it's also very dark because Anora, she's somebody who you could tell she has dealt with trauma in her past, and she thinks this is her way out of a very difficult life or a career choice. Being an escort, an exotic dancer, and then to have the rug pulled out from under her to be told not to realize, that Vanya doesn't really love her. He just wants to marry her to get a green card, to stay in America, to stay away from his parents in Russia.
Yeah.
And then two, the fact that, she threatens, not only is her husband, not defending themselves or their marriage, but that he's going to go off with what his parents want. But, her threats of like, I'm going to sue and get half of everything you own because we never signed a prenup. And then there's just the straight reality of the mom coming straight forward saying, hey, we are rich as hell. We are very well connected. You are going to lose. This is not a Cinderella story. This is not going to end how you think or want it to end. This isn't a movie.
Yeah.
And she realizes this is not a movie. She follows through with the annulment, gets dropped off back at home with nothing but the engagement ring that Igor saved for her.
Yeah, which I thought was such a nice gesture, because, and he has that moment where he's like, he's been, like we said earlier, he's kind of sitting back and taking in everyone, how they're interacting, and they try to show you, despite the fact that he's, he tied her up and was holding her down and stuff like that.
I didn't assault you.
Which, and I thought was interesting. He's like, I didn't assault you. It's like, well, she bit him too. I feel like he should have thrown that back at her, but like they try to portray him as someone who at least has some sort of like a moral high ground, talking a lot about his grandmother. They try to portray him as this nicer guy, and that scene at the end is very powerful. And I thought about it a lot, and from reading about it, where, he does that for her. He gives her the ring, and, she responds to sort of thank him in the only way that like, you know, her life has conditioned her to do, you know, and then they're having that intimate moment, and, you know, he's like trying to kiss her, and then she just breaks down. And there was a lot of discussion about that scene and how you interpret it. I mean, Mikey Madison even said, she's like, you can kind of tell how someone views the world based on how they interpret that. And the way that I was kind of looking at it in that moment is, you know, she always has this hope throughout this whole thing that, like, you know, Vanya's going to get it together, and like she's gonna get out of this rut that she's been in, and then I think in that moment she kind of realizes like no, like, you know, one of my friends, he wrote a review of it that I really liked, where he's like, she realizes like she's not going to Disney World, she's not gonna, like, she has the ring, but like, you know, she basically back where she was a week ago,
if
or
not
however,
steps behind from where she started. And
it's such a really interesting, the whole movie, I mean, and a lot of Sean Baker's work talks a lot about sex work, and it's such an interesting, just like, I like how it's bringing the conversations about the industry and what these people have to go through to the forefront, to the mainstream. I mean, this could win Best Picture at this point. I mean, not since, like, you know, maybe like Midnight Cowboy winning Best Picture as a story like that ever gotten that much recognition at the Oscars. And yeah, I mean, that last scene really lingered with me for a while. And I mean, like, someone was saying, like, oh, well, I hate the ending, like, I don't get it. It's like, it's kind of the point. Like, Sean Baker's movies end very ambiguously, and it's left to think of, like, what do you think about this? You know?
And even abruptly. Just the abruptness of it too. You're hoping for some a softer letdown, a softer exit from the film, but it's as real, it's as cold, literally as cold, because outside it's snowing. Snow is going. The only thing you hear, there's no music playing during that intimate scene. You just hear the windshield wipers, and it reminded me of just like a heartbeat. Just like a constant heartbeat, but like it's a very cold scene, very abrupt ending, and after it ends, you are kind of left. At least I was just like, I need a minute to. I need some time to soak this in, and because it's a roller coaster of, like, you have high ecstasy and passion in the very beginning of the movie, and then you have like the twist into the second act where the chase, the cat and mouse game begins, and that's the fun, the levity, and then you have the third act where the real world, where you have these very wealthy people. Showing the wealth disparity and what wealth and what that power does in real life to real people. And what that in the very, very, very final scene where the mom just like puts her foot down saying, this isn't ending how you think it's going to end. Don't try.
It's not a Cinderella story.
It's not worth it. And you know, and Annie and Anora, a part of the growth is that accepting it, just like, I got duped. I have to call it because there's no winning this, and leave, and try to rebuild after that. But Anora's an amazing film. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. We both highly recommend it.
Yeah, definitely.
Could win Best Picture. Really hoping the actors win their nominations as well. But it's been a while since a film left me feeling that way. And I'm very happy.
You should watch Florida Project.
I know.
It'll leave you feeling like that emptiness, but in a completely different way.
Yeah.
You know, like the ending of that movie is just as heartbreaking and just as ambiguous, you know?
Sean Baker.
He's a genius. Good for him.
Go, Sean.